Hello and welcome to Between the Bookshelves. I'm Carmen Mancuso. I'm a political science and public relations major, and today I am joined by Dr. Dave Kosmyna. So could you tell me a little bit about what field you're in?
Well, I'm in the music program, and I'm a trumpet player, so I teach all the trumpet students here at ONU, and I run the jazz ensemble, and those are the two big things that basically I do. So I'm definitely known as the trumpet geek around the area, and I'm always gigging because you have to gig, you have to make music.
So how did you end up as a trumpet player? Like, I would travel from piano to percussion.
This is epic. Okay, so when I was a kid, I took piano lessons from my mother for a month, and then I couldn't handle it anymore. So I quit. And then when you had the person come to school and they showed you the instruments that you could play. This one music store, the guy got up there and he played accordion. And I saw it, I said, wow, this is amazing. So I go home and my mother says, well, what do you want to join band? What do you want to do? I said, I want to play the accordion like that guy. She said, no. She said, your Uncle Jim has a trumpet, you're going to play the trumpet. And that's how it happened. So it was fate. He had one laying in the closet and gave it to me, and, the rest is history.
Really?
So.
Now, how did starting off with trumpet, what led you to higher education, of all things?
I think I always knew I was going to be a teacher. I think I probably knew I was going to be a teacher before I knew exactly what I was going to teach. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really even know I was going to do music until about my senior year in high school. When I told people I was going to go into music, a lot were really kind of surprised because I was actually known as more of an artist when I was in college. I was known for drawing caricatures, and I was always into drawing and art, and I had a whole column in high school where I would draw a caricature of a professor, and then we'd write an article on the teacher and whatnot. And but music just sort of grabbed me, and it just never went away. And so I ended up going to college to become a high school band director. So I did a music education degree, and with the full intent of teaching in the classroom, because I love teaching high school band and junior high band, beginning band students. I mean, it's just so much fun. And I had a really great student teaching experience. They worked me to death. And I was actually just exhausted, actually, because they just said, you're good at this, why don't you just do everything? So, and I had this interest in composing. And I thought, well, you know what, let me see if there's an opportunity to study composition in graduate school before I go out and teach. So I went and I did that with the intent of maybe learning how to write really good music for band, and I was sure I was going to become a junior high band director. And there was a really terrific trumpet teacher at the school, and I got a good assistantship. And I just started getting really intense with my trumpet, and I still thought I would go teach junior high band after my master's degree. And someone from the Cincinnati Conservatory came and gave a clinic and heard our faculty brass quintet. I was playing trumpet in it, and I'd written some arrangements. He said, these are really great. He goes, we've got an opening in our graduate student brass quintet and a full ride tuition waiver. He said, you should apply. And I thought, well, I'm not thinking of going and getting a doctorate, but I went and I applied. It was the only place I applied, and I got in. And so the Cincinnati Conservatory is a great place. And Cincinnati's a great town, lots of chili, lots of beer. And but anyway, so it just kind of happened organically. And when I did it, I was a little naive. I thought, well, I still didn't know if I was going to teach college or university. And I'm thinking, why am I getting this degree? But part of me did it just to see, do you have what it takes to get through it? That was really my whole motivation. I was like, well, can I do it? And I figured, well, what the heck? And even after that, I wasn't really even ready to start teaching. And I was still in school. I hadn't completed my requirements. And I get a phone call saying, hey, we need somebody to come in and do a one-year gig up at SUNY Fredonia, which is near where your dad was from, the Buffalo area, yeah. And so all of a sudden, I remember my trumpet teacher saying, give me your resume tomorrow. I said, I don't have one yet, and so he gave me a copy of his. I hodgepodge some things together. I don't hear anything. All of a sudden I get a phone call, and I go there, I audition, and by noon that day I find out I have a job. And I'm thinking, well, here we go. In fact, I almost didn't accept it, but there's a little bit of a catch-22, like you can't get your first job without experience, but you can't get your experience without your first job. So it was just one of those things that even though I wasn't done with my degree, I went for it, and moved to New York for a couple of years teaching on this visiting gig. And the chicken wings are worth their weight in gold. I highly recommend, go out to Buffalo, New York, and A+. I would take my trumpet studio out there at the end of every semester. We go get beer and wings, so it was a good time.
Sweet.
Oh, it was wonderful, so.
So you have this background, obviously trumpet to teaching, but outside of teaching, you also have this career in gigs. So can you tell me about some of the places you traveled to and those experiences?
Oh, boy. Okay, so I've always been somebody that can't make up my mind. Okay, here I am, I'm approaching 50, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. Right? And so as a player, I love playing classical music. I thought I was going to become an orchestral trumpet player for a long time. And I love doing that stuff, and I love playing solo trumpet music, and I've done a lot of brass quintet stuff, but I also love jazz, and I've done all kinds of different stuff, and then I had this sort of maniacal passion for New Orleans style jazz, like the really early stuff. And that is the thing that I've probably done the most work with, and I've been very fortunate to kind of travel the world playing that music. I was lucky to, I partnered up with a band that was based out of Toronto, called the Climax Jazz Band, and they just disbanded because the founding member passed away. But he was well into his 80s, and he gave it a good hurrah. So, and it was just this wonderful experience. So I got to travel to Europe a bunch, and we traveled down into South America and into the Caribbean, and all through the Canada and the U.S. And it was a wonderful experience, and that then opened up more doors and more things happen, and so it's just hard for me to stop. I'm like addicted to performing. But that's probably a good addiction, I hope.
Absolutely.
So,
what are your other interests besides music?
So I used to be interested in golf. Okay. But golf is too much like music. All right. It's something you're never good enough at it. Okay, and you're always constantly having to practice your fundamentals and everything like this. So I sort of had this love-hate relationship with it. And I decided when I turned 30 I would stop keeping score to see if it would take the pressure off me, and then when I was 40 I would start up again. It didn't help. But anyway, but that sort of subsided when I bought a house. I bought this beautiful historic home near the Art Museum in Toledo. And I didn't know anything about restoring old homes or historic preservation. I just had like a little toolbox this big. And since then I've become obsessed again with restoration and preservation and stuff like this. So I actually volunteer for the City of Toledo Plan Commission. So I chair the Old West End Historic District Commission. So that's the neighborhood I live in. And so it's a federally designated historic register of homes, and it's a remarkable neighborhood. There's just such a great sense of community there, and that's something that's just made a really terrific joy in my life, to just have a great sense of community when I'm away from here.
Yes.
Because you have to have balance everywhere, and that's just it's been a really wonderful thing. So I've really geeked out about preservation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Do you think it's helped having, you obviously have this career in music, but then your hobbies are something so completely different and so separate? Is that kind of like give you a break from music? Obviously the space.
It does. I never get tired of music, but you can get tired from doing a lot of anything.
Yes.
So sometimes you get a little fatigued, but there'll be moments where I'll get home and I just need to decompress. So what do? I pull out the heat gun and I start stripping wood off, something that was painted, somebody in the 40s painted this woodwork, this horrible, awful green color. There's like 5 colors in the 40s. They painted everything.
Yeah.
My house got that on the inside. So, but most of it's been redone and by some people before me, but it's just awesome. I absolutely love it. And we just have this wonderful home. We like to throw parties, and have people. We just had a huge jazz party in January, and it's so much fun, so it's good times. You got to have good times. Life's too short not to enjoy everything.
Yes. So would little kid you have imagined you'd end up in a career in music or with these hobbies of restoration? What were your dreams as a little kid?
Oh, man. I did not necessarily expect to end up where I did.
Yes.
I would say when I was a kid, I did have interest in old things. I was always interested in art, and I was always interested in music. And I was very interested in medieval things, of all things. I would get these books at the library, when people went to libraries. All right, I would get these books at the library, on the makeup of a medieval castle, or then like drawing books, like I would trace those Stanley, like trying to draw like, Marvel characters and stuff like that. And Star Wars was a big thing. I was there at the original film, okay, and was in 1977 or something like that or whatever. So apparently I stood up. My mother said there's a great story that when Star Wars came on and I was just this little kid and Darth Vader was on the screen and did something, some horrible thing, and apparently I stood up and said, "You're a bad man." Of course I don't remember this at all, but yeah, there's your little cute moment. There you go. So, yeah, so I'm not too sure I knew exactly what I was going to do. Sometimes you just let life. Sometimes you know where you're going to go, and sometimes you let life sort of lead you in certain directions. But I did know that I was passionate about music, and I knew I was going to do it somehow. I was going to be involved with it some way. And I did know I was going to teach. I just didn't know in what capacity.
Yes.
So you see an opportunity, and you take it to sort of where it leads you, and then you figure out what makes you get up every day.
Yes.
So
why did you like ending up at Northern?
So this was an interesting journey here because I was in New York, and it was a temporary position. And then a job opened up back in Ohio. I'm from Ohio, so I'm from Toledo, and did all my degrees in Ohio, but never anything in Northeast Ohio. So I thought being like yin and yang, I thought I'd end up in Cleveland, but I overshot it by about 2 hours. And then a job opened up here, and it was kind of last minute. I wasn't too sure exactly where things were going. It was a visiting gig that had opened up because the previous trumpet professor had passed away unexpectedly. And they had just filled in for a year. So I get this interim job, and I moved to Ada. All right. And that was a little bit of a challenge just because I wasn't used to the small town life.
Yes.
And I'm also a pretty active musician, so I would constantly be out playing gigs. So it wasn't uncommon for me to finish a gig at midnight or 1 a.m. and then have to be back for 9 a.m. theory class in the morning with an hour plus commute in almost any direction. So once I relocated, it made that part a little bit more manageable, in terms of being able to get home. But I ended up here on a visiting appointment, and then after I was here 3 years, the job went tenure track. And I remember I was thinking, well, I'm in my early 30s, it's time to buy a house. So I remember, looking around for a home, and I started looking for a house before I even had a job. So I was a little scary. And I remember getting a phone call from the realtor saying, "Congratulations, your new address is blah, blah, blah." And 5 minutes later, I had to run downstairs and play the Eritrean trumpet concerto for my audition to win the job I already had, because that's how it works when you have to, transition from visiting to tenure track. So that was kind of unnerving. I remember going downstairs thinking, don't screw it up. You just never know where your journeys are going to take you. But I'm really glad that I'm back in Northwest Ohio.
Yes.
I mean, believe it or not, I actually like the weather here. I think, gray skies, who knew? But it's a great area, and I think people forget that you have such proximity to so many things. I mean, I go up to Detroit and Ann Arbor because they're close and they're fun. I can zip to Cleveland. I can go play a job at the Green Mill in Chicago and get back. I've done that before. I won't do that again. That was I left after jazz band one night. I was done at 4:15, and I drove straight to Chicago, and I got there 15 minutes before we started playing. And the band played till midnight, which was 1 a.m. our time, and then I drove straight back the next day. So, but when you get a chance to play in Chicago and it's Al Capone's old hang, how cool is that?
Might as well.
You can't pass that up. That's good stuff. So.
Well, of all places, I'm glad you ended up at ONU. Thank you
Me
for
too.
joining me today.
Well, thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you for tuning in.